When the twins mentioned a sleigh, you weren't entirely prepared for this thing. For one thing, it's so massive that it almost reminds you of a train car, and for another, it's entirely enclosed. More pressing than its sheer size, however, is the fact that the thing appears to be pulled by two terrifyingly large, white-furred, woolly rhinos. You freeze just inside the entrance to the courtyard where the sleigh is parked, your knees shaking. Is that... You begin, but you falter as the twins both turn to stare at you. Are those rhinoceroses? You can tell from the expression on their faces that they have no clue what you're talking about, and Griep steps up to pat one of the beasts on its flank. It kneads its feet against the ground like an excited cat, and you notice that the thing has claws. Big ones. Oh god, so not a rhino then.
This is Hornburi, and beside him you see his brother Vamuli. I have reared them since they were small. They are very loyal.
The thing makes a loud, bellowing sound, and you jump, fighting the urge to go flying back into the palace to look for Loki. You're pretty sure he won't let some freakish, prehistoric rhino-tiger hybrid eat you, and right now, that's kind of the reassurance you need.
There is no need to be frightened in Unga.
Gjalep is quick to reassure you, steering you towards the door of the sleigh carriage.
Poor little thing. I told you he should keep her in the palace, sister. Without the king here to keep her alive, how long could she survive the court?
Please stop talking over my head, especially about me dying. Not really helping.
We could stay behind. Lady Skadi would never permit it. Get her inside. I can hear stirrings. The feast is likely ending, and the king does not want her out in the chaos of the leave-taking.
You have to be practically hoisted up to reach the top step of the sleigh, and you don't make a very graceful landing. Everything is made of dark wood on the inside, though it's filled with mats and cushions. In fact, even the inner walls are covered with thickly woven swaths of fabric. There are a few windows, but they have the same bubbly, thick glass as some of the ones in the palace. So, other than letting in some light, you can't imagine that they're very useful. Gjalep clambers in after you.
This is very exciting. I have never traveled in such a large convoy before, and we have never had an entire sleigh to ourselves.
You find a nice little nook in between some boxes and baskets that presumably hold some sort of supplies, and once you've snuggled in, she drops a massive duvet-like blanket on your lap. No one else is riding in here?
No one else. Unless one of the riders tires of the elements and decides to shelter with us. If we do not reach a resting post before the party decides to halt for the night, we may have company, but I am hopeful that we will not be disturbed.
Griep calls from the door. The doorway is fairly wide, and over her shoulder, you see several giants start to trickle into the courtyard, carrying bags and shields and all sorts of other interesting-looking things. You're so distracted staring behind her that you almost miss the flash of bright white fur that appears by her knees.
My! Wherever did you come from?
Gjalep moves forward for a better view, but you stay firmly where you are. No more freaky alien creatures for me, thank you.
What is it, sister? A Melraki.
She stoops down and hefts the thing in her arms, and it makes an obscenely loud purring sound. You're almost shocked by how familiar it looks. It looks like a fox. A worryingly large, fluffy, suspiciously feline-looking fox. But still, the thing is definitely some kind of fox.
Oh, where is your collar,
Griep coos, and the fox, Melraki, or whatever it is, purrs again, its narrow, shiny black eyes giving off a look of supreme satisfaction.
Do you suppose he is feral? He does not seem feral. In any case, they are said to be auspicious. I say we bring him along.
Oh, hell no, you think. Like, sure, he's cute and all, but this isn't some little earthly Arctic fox. The thing's the size of a sturdy wolf, and you can see its sharp little teeth as it yawns. But it looks like you're overruled, because Gjalep claps her hands in excitement and hefts the giant furball into the sleigh, and Griep climbs in after her, pulling the door closed. The twins both settle cross-legged on the floor near you, and you keep a wary eye on the toothy interloper that almost seems to be grinning at you.
What shall we call him?
Gjalep asks, scratching the Melraki behind one of its large ears.
Vataski.
Griep declares. Yeah, no. You decide. The thing's a snowball if you've ever seen one. How about Snowball? They both look amused at that.
It is a very strange name in Unga. A strange name for strange times.
The creature pads over and climbs into her lap, curling up with its tail under its chin.
I like it. Snowball he shall be.
You can't help but laugh a bit at that. She says it like it's some sort of grand exotic title. It's a fairly common name for pets where I'm from. It's good that you have something to talk about to distract you, because there's a lot of noise outside the sleigh now, and it's making you tense. Part of you almost wishes Loki would just sling you over his shoulder again. At least you know he's capable of magicking up miracle cures when you're about to die of hypothermia. Griep seems incredibly taken with her new pet, which almost seems to be on the verge of falling asleep in her lap.
Mortals have pets?
She says, slightly surprised. You blink. Of course. I mean, humans are at the top of the food chain on Earth, you know. On Midgard, I mean. We have all kinds of pets.
I should like to visit Midgard someday. Father says that there are many interesting plants that grow on Midgard, and that even the winters are mild.
Gjalep declares. She's kneeling by one of the trunks now, digging around for something. He's been before?
Yes, many Jotnar have been there, though we have never had the opportunity, as we were born after Odin's war.
Gjalep pulls a heavy-looking tome out of the trunk and places it in your lap.
Prince Bylester thought that this might entertain you for a while, mortal. There are pictures, even if you cannot read it.
That's interesting. What's it about? You ask, flipping open the cover. The pictures are brightly colored and gilded, and the first page shows a massive tree.
It is an account of the 9 realms, and its peoples.
She replies, glancing over the page. You flip to the next one, and there's a portrait of a young, white-haired giant with a smirk on his face. His eyes are green. Who's this?
I am not certain.
She plucks the book from your hands and holds it up so that her sister can see, and you watch Griep quickly scan over the page.
It is the Witch King Havarungur of the Stormer Jotnar. He wrote it in ancient days. It is said that he traveled all the worlds in the days when Bor, son of Buri, ruled the realm eternal. He was an Aesir friend and elf friend alike.
She says, wrinkling her nose slightly. From the tone of her voice, he isn't a very well thought of historical figure on Jotunheim, but that does sound like a pretty impressive resume. He has green eyes.
The mark of a sorcerer and a shapeshifter. The Stormer Jotnar are rife with them, and always have been.
There's a little bit of awe in her tone, mixed with the disapproval. The fox on her lap makes an irritated little yelp, and she continues petting him. What an intention hog, you think.
Mother says that they mixed with the Vanir in the old days, but I have also heard it said that they have Hrossþjófr blood.
You aren't entirely sure what all of that means, but it's certainly not a good thing. Hrossþjófr?
The light elves of Alfheim. They are known for their skin changing.
Skin changing makes it sound even creepier, you decide. And he's dead now, I'm guessing?
Killed in battle. They say he went mad.
Gjalep places the book back in your hands, and you smooth your finger over the runes at the bottom of the page, wishing you could read them. The Witch King on the page, well, you can't deny that he looks a lot like your own favorite blue sorcerer. It's something in his eyes, like he knows some big secret joke. Maybe you can ask one of the Storm Twins more about him. Griep and Gjalep seem to think of magic users in general as pretty scandalous, and you doubt they would know much beyond the fact that the guy went crazy and had to be killed. There's more bellowing outside only a few minutes later, and you can only assume that more of the rhino things are being brought in to load up for the trip. Nerves on edge, you flip to another page, wishing that Loki would make an appearance. He promised he'd keep you safe. Someone knocks sharply on the door, and then it opens to reveal a pointy-eared giant wearing a surprising amount of layers. You guess no one wants to be completely miserable for a road trip that might last almost a week.
We are ready, my ladies. We will be near the head of the convoy. Is there anything you require?
No. We are ready to depart.
He closes the door firmly, and you try to ignore the rapid pounding of your heart as the sleigh lurches into motion. You aren't sure how long it's been, though it's been dark outside for quite some time now. The sun fully set, and only a bit of moonlight making it through the whirling snow and through the thick windows of the sleigh. One of the benefits of being relatively tiny, you decided, is that you can move about pretty easily inside the sleigh, while the twins have to duck their heads any time they want to stand. You've gotten pretty restless. Griep has been asleep for a while, with the purring snowball curled up in her lap. You're still getting a kick out of that name, and Gjalep is reading something by the lamplight. You're tempted to try asking her a bunch of questions, but things are kind of weird, and you aren't really sure how chatty you can get before they decide that you aren't being very pet-like and get annoyed. But you have decided that Gjalep seems to be the more sentimental, excitable of the two of them, so maybe you can get her to share some interesting gossip. You are supposed to be Loki's spy, after all. And then, you remember the whole Loka Kona thing, and you grimace. I'm not his woman, you think, pulling your quilt tighter around your shoulders as you try to make out what lies beyond the window at the front of the sleigh. I'm not his anything. Unfortunately, with nothing to distract you, your mind begins to wander, and where it decides to wander is right back to the steam pool where Loki looked at you like he wanted to devour you. Ugh. Just kill me now. Heat burns through you, and you peek over your shoulder to make sure Gjalep isn't giving you any knowing looks. You're relieved to see that she still has her eyes glued to her book. For a minute, you almost consider asking her about the scent thing, because human senses definitely aren't that advanced, but you're too afraid that she'd figure out why you're asking. But you can't blot out the phantom sensation of his thumb stroking the soft skin of your side, or the way his dark hair clung to his neck from the steam of the bath, or the rasp in his deep voice. Oh my god, get a hold of yourself, lady! Hey, when do you think we'll stop and eat or take a break? You ask. Hopefully you sound casual. You really don't want anyone to figure out that you're really just wanting to see Loki.
I doubt very much that we will stop for hours yet in Anga. It is best if we travel as far as possible while the weather allows. There is food here if you are hungry. I would also suggest that you sleep if you are tired. It will be a long night.
Oh, okay. You return to your spot and curl up with the book again, hoping that maybe you can at least let the whir of the wind outside lull you to sleep.
Sire!
Griep's startled, sleepy voice wakes you suddenly, and you open your eyes to find Loki perched in the open doorway, his cloak whipping in the wind. Snow filters into the sleigh, and you realize that it's still speeding along. You just stare at him. Did he just leap onto the side of a moving sleigh? Loki slips inside and pulls the door closed behind him, dusting snow from his clothing.
I tire of the wind,
He announces, his lips turned in an imperious frown. The twins exchange a look, but he ignores them, carefully selecting a large cushion in the front of the sleigh, upon which he promptly sprawls. Once he's settled in, he raises his hand, pointing one long finger at the fox creature in Griep's lap.
What is this?
Its long tongue lolls as it appears to grin at him, and you notice that Griep leans forward, slightly protective.
This is a Mulraki, sire. We found him in the courtyard, and
And naturally, you decided he should be brought along on this expedition.
Gjalep clears her throat awkwardly. At least you aren't the only one he intimidates.
They are good omens. And he is clearly domesticated.
The Mulraki ducks its furry head under its tail as Loki continues to glower at it, and then he suddenly breaks into a smirk.
Auspicious indeed. Now, come here, mortal.
You stare at him. Is he really going to make you come cuddle with him? In front of the twins? Apparently so, since he crooks his finger at you, his eyes dark in the dim light. Full of apprehension, you flounder your way to your feet and shuffle to his side. Oh my god, what is the matter with you, Loki? You shriek internally. Can you not see how horrifically awkward this is for everyone? Loki spreads his legs slightly as he settles back against the cushions, and your face feels like it's catching fire.
Sit, pet.
You try to gingerly perch on his knee, despite the sleigh jostling along, but Loki is quick to wrap his arms around you and drag you back against him as he lounges. Body stiff, you do your very best to not melt when you feel his breath against your ear.
After last night, you can hardly pretend to be bashful, can you?
Closing your eyes, you try to force your muscles to relax. It's not like you can just throw a fit in front of the twins, because knowing Loki, he'd probably lose his mind and actually punish you for it. And even if Griep and Gjalep were weirded out by their new king popping in for a surprise sleepover, they're both too afraid of him to actually say anything about it.
Your king is going to sleep. I suggest you do the same.
Loki tucks the quilt around you both, as if he hasn't a care in the world. You wake up sometime later, not even realizing that you had fallen asleep. The inside of the sleigh is dark, only one hanging lantern left swaying at the other end. Gjalep is slumped over with her book in her lap, and Griep is curled up on a cushion not too far from her, in the aptly named Snowball nestled against her side. And Loki, well, you don't know how you managed it, but you must have rolled over to get more comfortable at some point, because you're lying on top of him now, chest to chest, your head tucked under his chin. His breathing is so steady, peaceful even. Loki isn't someone you typically describe as peaceful. He makes a sleepy humming sound, and you cringe as you realize that your stirring must have woken him. Or maybe it didn't, because instead of the half-awake grumbling you anticipated, you feel one of his large hands rub a few light circles on the small of your back, almost like he's trying to soothe you back to sleep. You aren't really sure what to make of that, but it does feel nice, and you don't have much time to fret over it all before you slip back into your dreams. That fox thing is right in your face when you wake up again, peering down at you with a toothy grin. Your heart nearly stops, and you're pretty sure it's laughing at you. Griep's face appears above it only a moment later, blinking sleepily.
We've come to a halt in Unga. There is a small lodge by the river here, and the king has called for a rest. The animals need to be fed and watered.
You sit up. Loki is nowhere to be seen. Oh, thank goodness. I really have to pee. For a so-called primitive race, the frost giants seem to hold a pretty high standard as far as the whole interior plumbing situation is concerned. So you're hoping that holds true, even for whatever medieval version of an Encino lodge you stopped at now. Can I get out? You ask.
Of course. We shall all go inside and refresh ourselves. Because we are near the head of the convoy with the royal party, we will be first.
Gjalep slings a large bag over her shoulder and opens the door, hopping out into the snow. It's daylight now, but it still looks cold as hell, and suddenly you're kind of second-guessing your eagerness to get out of the carriage.
Come, mortal! We must move quickly. I do not imagine the king will wish to stop for long.
She calls, holding out her hand. You let her help you out of the sleigh, immediately sinking into snow past your knees.
Oh, goodness! Such short little legs you have! Carry her, sister.
Oh, no, you really don't have to. Griep kneels down, apparently unbothered by the snow.
Nonsense! You will be terribly slow if you try to push through this. Come!
And so you climb onto her back, accepting the fact that you're pretty darn useless outside on this stupid planet. At least they're being nice about it, you guess. Snowball bursts out of the sleigh behind Griep and starts bouncing off through the snow with unbridled exuberance.
Wait!
She cries, but the fox thing has already disappeared into the snow-covered brush alongside the roadway, and her face falls.
Oh, I am certain he will come back. It is the nature of wild things to run, after all.
Griep agrees, but she still looks pretty crestfallen.
You are right.
While it would be probably wise to keep your head down, your curiosity gets the better of you, and you peer around from your vantage point. Once Griep rounds to the other side of the sleigh, you spy the so-called small lodge, and surprise, surprise, it really isn't that small. I guess everything's bigger on Jotunheim. The lodge is round, with a large domed roof, and save for the doorways, the entire stone structure is covered with a thick layer of ice. Oh, cool. Like a crazy giant igloo. There are a lot of frost giants milling about outside, some that you recognize from the palace, and some that you've never seen before. One particular cluster seems to have caught notice of you, and from the way they're staring, you guess that they didn't get the memo about Loki's mortal.
From Midgardi.
You hear one of the men say as Griep and Gjalep pass by them. Hey, Midgard. I know what that means. Then you realize that they're probably saying something pretty unsavory about you, and some of your excitement fades. Once you enter the lodge, you find that almost the entire structure is made up of one large open room. There's a huge fire burning in the center, and stone tables and benches are all set up around it. In some ways, it almost reminds you of a cafeteria, or like a really sparsely decorated event center. Heidor and Hrossþjófr are already seated at a table, and they wave you over. Gjalep settles you carefully onto one of the benches, and you try to ignore the fact that a ton of giants are watching you with apparent consternation. Well, it seems like humans at the dinner table must be a pretty big faux pas.
How fares our mortal? It seems you've survived the night in one piece.
Hrossþjófr asks, crossing his arms against his chest.
Of course she did. Fate wills it so.
His sister says, and then she smiles at you, eyes sparkling.
And so does Loki Laufeyson.
You aren't entirely sure why, but that made you blush. They must have been traveling with him at the front of the caravan. Do they know that he snuck away during the night to snuggle up with you, like some sort of fickle, bad-tempered cat? It's a possibility. Yeah, I don't think fate likes me all that much. You say softly, surreptitiously searching the room for Loki. Where is he? You actually kind of hoped you'd get to be with him for a little while, considering he's, well, you aren't sure what he is anymore. Not a friend, of course, but something.
Nonsense! Fate shines on you in Unga. You have a place and a purpose. What more could a mortal desire?
Oh boy, there is so much I could say to that. Hrossþjófr beams at her, teeth bright.
And you, Igudja, are you enjoying the journey?
Call me that again, Satyr Harandi, and I will string you up by your ears once we reach my father's forest.
I only wish you would dare attempt it.
blushing again? She definitely looks like she's blushing again.
Come, mortal. Let us go bathe and change, and then we will eat.
Griep says briskly, taking the bag from her sister. It's kind of nice to have someone else's drama to mull over as she steers you through the crowded room, because it lets you pretend that you don't have your own issues to deal with right now. Once you're alone with her in one of the bathing rooms, you figured it's safe to speak. What's Inguja mean?
It is what they used to refer to the giantesses from the forest. It implies that we are troll-like.
Of course, trolls are a real thing. You take a breath. And Heidor Handi?
Heidor Bearer, a wizard.
Griep says, rummaging in the bag and pulling out a bundle of assorted fabrics. Oh, like Loki... like the king? She gives you a strange look, like she can't believe you almost said his name.
Yes. Like the king.
And that's an insult?
For most of us, yes.
You'll have to remember to listen out for that one. The bathing room you're in now pales in comparison to the one in the palace. Instead of a fancy pool, there are several long, trough-like sinks along the wall, flowing with water that, fortunately, appears to be steaming.
Go relieve yourself. That room there.
She points to a door near the back, and you bolt for it. Don't mind if I do. You've always hated that about road trips. The bathroom situation can be pretty sketchy. When you come back, she's stripped off already and is scrubbing herself down with a sponge. Oh, great. More naked giants.
Quickly, Inanga. Come and bathe. We are not in the palace, and the water will not stay this scalding for long.
Scalding water is too tempting to resist. Okay, so this is happening. At least you aren't having to take another bath with Loki, so that's good. Whatever charm he put on you was impressive, but you can't feel like you're gonna freeze your butt off when you start washing off. And so you speed through and put on your new clothes in under 5 minutes. Good enough. Who cares if I smell a little funky? They're the ones dragging me across the wilderness, so they can deal with it. Loki was sitting with his brother when Griep finally brings you back through the lodge common room. And other than a hint of that blade-thin little smile of his, he doesn't seem to take any real notice to you. Whatever. At least that means less attention will be on me. Maybe. A bowl is placed in front of you at the table. Loki approved, you assume, and you're honestly pretty hungry, so you try to dig in. It's shredded meat of some kind, and more of the suspicious green biscuits. I just want a salad. A nice salad with some fresh fruit, and maybe even a soda. Both sets of twins are teasing at each other, and you honestly aren't really following most of it. Teenage giant insults must be in their own class, you guess. Storm twins are definitely a lot less dignified when they aren't standing up in front of everyone making speeches. But then, Heidor looks up at something behind you, and you can see the playfulness smooth from her features.
Prince Bylester, how may we serve you?
I am starved for entertaining conversation. I wish to join you.
Of course, sire. We would be honored.
You don't turn around. You don't have to, because you can just feel his stare. Gjalep is beaming, and her sister looks slightly tense.
Good.
Bylester replies, and you do your best to keep your eyes fixed on your lunch as he slides into the space beside you. When you do risk a glance towards the fire, you notice that the king's red eyes are staring right at you.